listen to this fantasy.
Wow, low unemployment, high jobs, high wages, big consumer confidence, major productivity, and no inflation.
No inflation? What are you, nuts? Stocks up 357%. Gasoline's up 46% alone since December. How about medical? Up 8%. College up 8%. Movie tickets with soda, popcorn, up 15%. Low unemployment? Not true. The 3.9% is fake. It's really 11% because of the 15 million discouraged workers they do not add in. Look, this is just some of it. High wages? That's a joke. It's 1.2%, not 3%. When you look at the withholding tax where the truth is. Join my gang, philsgang.com, and get the truth.
For more information, go to philsgang.com or give us a call at 877-600-GANG. 877-600-4264. 877-600-4264.
In the Inland Empire, you know how much it means to have neighbors you can count on, like the Cookout Kings who invite you over every weekend for Burger Palooza. Well, here's another good neighbor you can count on, State Farm agent Joe Amlani. He and his team are here to help life go right when you combine your home and auto insurance, which can save you money and time. So combine home and auto and start the savings rolling. Call State Farm agent Joe Amlani, 909-894-4619 today.
I always hear from our clients who hired another firm that they wish they'd hired DNA Financial first. Don't have regrets about your IRS tax case. Just hire the best in the first place.
One owed $150,000 to the IRS and had spent thousands on another firm. We stopped the levies, negotiated a payment plan, and had their penalties forgiven.
And while every case is different, we guarantee that we'll find your perfect resolution and get it done right.
For a free consultation, call us at 866-201-0156. That's 866-201-0156. Then you can say, DNA did right by me.
KCAA.
Welcome to Smart Health Talk with your host, Elaine McFadden.
Take a walk on the wild side. Will the birds and the bees survive? Right before me, my newfound hippie side. Once ignored these conspiracies online. Out the window, visions of the earth. Sign me up now, make sure you use your smart. Take a walk on the wild side. Will the birds and the bees survive? Would your children lie to see Mother Nature sigh?
Welcome to Smart Health Talk with your host, Elaine McFadden.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Elaine McFadden, and you're listening to Smart Health Talk. And we're the show that's looking out for you, your health, your family, and the environment that we live in. And those of you that have kept track of the story of what's going on with the water, the spring water that's being taken from the San Bernardino Mountains by Nestle, this is a big story, and that's because they have been taking millions of gallons of water in a drought up in the mountains, leaving the streams, the wildlife, and the landscape dry while they make millions of dollars. They took over 40 million gallons and pretty much paid nothing. And they think, Nestle, a French company, thinks they have a right to our spring water, which is pretty much the rarest water on the planet. Less than 1% of the global water is spring water. Now, USA Today, if you do a search, they just did a great article on where we stand with this, because the federal government is pretty much allowing them, the Trump administration as well, to support Nestle having access to all this free water. Please listen to our interview with Steve Lowe, who is a forest ranger up in San Bernardino for 30 years, and he pretty much tells it like it is about what's really going on with this system. We ask you to please boycott any Nestle products. None of them are worth eating anyway, according to us. So go ahead, Nick. Play our interview with Steve Lowe. And everyone, please stay tuned. This is so important. If we don't speak up and demand that this change and they stop taking our water, it's just going to continue because the federal government is allowing them. Thanks. Bye.
Welcome, everyone. This is Smart Health Talk Radio Show, and you're listening to KCAA 1050 AM. But not just 1050 AM, for those of you that have been longtime listeners, just FYI, we're on 106.5 FM and 102.3 FM as well. And you can probably hear us all the way out through Riverside, all the way out to Palm Springs, Ontario, on our FM broadcast, which is very exciting for us. And if you're listening to KCAA right now, I just really hope that you're going to be sticking around for our Smart Health Talk show. And I'm your host, Elaine McFadden. I'm a registered dietitian with a master's in public health. And I'm your personal dietitian today, but we are going to be talking about things related to public health. Especially, there's lots of stuff going on. And I'm very excited. I have an incredible guest here with me today, Steve Lowe. And for those of you that live in our Inland Empire, you may have heard that Nestle, that makes all those junk food products, none of which I buy myself or would allow in my body. But they have been taking water from our San Bernardino Mountains for decades. Decades, everybody. And so that Arrowhead Springs water that you're buying is actually, the water is from our mountains, but it's being taken out by a Swiss foreign company. And they have been, like, just to give you an example, last year they took 36 million gallons and they paid a whole $524 for it. Do the math. Yeah, we're being ripped off big time. Not only are we being ripped off of spring water, and just to put something in perspective, when we look at the world water supply, spring water is less than 1%. It is rare, it is precious, it is filtered, and they are just pretty much, taking all they want for $524. And we're going to get the story behind that, but not just the logistics of what has happened here, but the long-term wide effects of what's happening. And Steve is an expert at this. He's going to tell us just what it means when a company comes and takes that much water out of our mountains, especially during times when we have a drought. And yeah, we had some rain this year, but we're not out of the woods yet, and not even close. And so we really need to understand the big picture of when we allow these kind of things, because right now the government is actually negotiating a new contract with them. And they are so arrogant. Their response to that contract was just kind of mind-blowing, really. They think they have the right to our water, pretty much, to take whatever they want, because they've been getting away with it for so long. And that ranger that wrote that contract to begin with is now working for Nestle. So just to kind of have an idea of what's going on there. And then Steve and I are also going to be going through some really important issues that are going on in the news right now, and I'm really interested to hear his view on these subjects as well. So why don't we go ahead and get to know Steve a little bit, because I'm going to get to know him along with you guys, and he's actually right here in the studio with me. And go ahead, and I want to introduce Steve Lowe, and I want him to give us a little rundown on his history, because I think it's probably pretty interesting.
Yes, my name's Steve Lowe, and I'm a Forest Service biologist, retired now. I worked for the Forest Service for 40 years. About 30 of that was here on the San Bernardino National Forest. The Nestle's permit was first issued in 1929, which is years and years ago, before the Forest Service had biologists and people who understood hydrologists. So anyway, that permit was issued, and since that time, Nestle has drilled about 10 wells. The wells that they've drilled, well, they include some tunnels. They also have tunnels, and those go into the mountain up to 500 feet deep. Those, Nestle's claim is that those are surface water that they have rights for, and so that's really being challenged now. That's one of the focuses of the public challenge, is their water right. But anyway, the Forest Service issued that permit in 29, and then it was renewed basically every 10 years or so. And the last one that was issued was 1978. In 1988, that permit came up for renewal, and the Forest Service was busy, and nothing was done. 1998, nothing was done. About 2002 or so, the Forest Service said, wait a minute, we better do an analysis here and find out if we're taking too much water, not enough water. Well, at that time we had I don't know if you all remember, but we had a huge fire just outside San Bernardino, the old fire. We also, immediately after that, had one of the biggest floods ever in San Bernardino, killed 18 people at a church in Waterman Canyon. Wow. So it was a really, really tough year. And so the Forest Service kind of just dropped the Nestle analysis. And part of the reason was that, again, that we were so busy at that time. But at that time, we recognized how important it was to do that analysis. We knew Strawberry Creek, where all those wells are. We knew that it was an important creek. We weren't sure how important. But so we never got back to that thing. And then in about 2010 or 11, we had a big tunnel come through the National Forest. It's a huge 18-foot diameter Metropolitan Water District tunnel. It was called the Arrowhead Tunnel. It's part of the Inland Feeder Project, and it takes water from Silverwood Lake to Dominigoni or Diamond Valley Lake. And it's part of our storage here. But anyway, in the process of drilling that tunnel, we learned how important groundwater is to our surface water springs. Our streams in the summer here only run because of groundwater that's stored up in them during the rest of the year. And so we learned that all the animals that live in our streams in this San Bernardino front country, we have endangered species like leaf-spells vireo, yellow willow flycatcher. We have a southern rubber boa, which is a state threatened species. We have spotted owls and all of these species depend on water. And so during this drought, which was the worst drought that we've had in probably 500 plus years, Nestle continued to take all the water they could. We met with them 2 years ago and begged them to meet with the public and try to figure out how to take care of the water, how to take care of the stream and make sure that we didn't dry the stream up. And basically they just shined us on. They refused to meet with us, kept pumping water, and in 2015, even though we were still in the drought, they actually increased their take of water that year. At the same time that the residents in the mountains were being told they had to quit watering their lawns, they had to cut back 25% on their water, Nestle was increasing their take from the same groundwater that the mountaintop uses. So
I'm getting more upset by the minute, Steve. I mean, this is really upsetting. But go ahead and continue.
Okay.
I have a feeling it gets worse.
So when they refused to meet with us, and the Forest Service, I think, was afraid to meet with us because they're afraid of Nestle. Nestle is so powerful, they have more lawyers than the government, we hear. So the Forest Service is real afraid to do much. They're acting totally different than they've ever acted before on any project that I've been involved in for 40 years. So anyway, all the local conservation groups, Sierra Club, Audubon, the Save Our Forest Association, Tri-County Conservation League, the Endangered Habitats League, all of those groups band together and started writing letters to the forest supervisor, begging them to stop Nestle from taking water and to do an analysis of whether there is water available for Nestle. The way the National Forest works is they're only supposed to give water if it's in excess to National Forest needs. Well, in a 500-year drought, there was no water in excess of National Forest needs. And so they shouldn't have been taking any water. So anyway, those groups writing those letters, plus Astoria Stuff and Center for Biological Diversity and the Courage Campaign filed lawsuit against the Forest Service for continuing to allow Nestle to take water. The lawsuit, we lost the lawsuit. The judge said it's not Nestle's fault that the Forest Service hasn't taken any action for 29 years. So the Forest Service needs to continue with their plans to do an analysis and come up with a new permit. So now what the public is trying to do is to make sure that the state and the Forest Service both know that the public supports them standing up to Nestle. It's going to be real hard for the state to rule against Nestle and for the Forest Service to rule against Nestle. Nestle's threatened to sue both of them. And so it's going to be hard for them to do that, and all the public support that we can give them will help them stand up. It's public land, the National Forest, or public land owned by every citizen in the United States owns that National Forest. And the water underneath that National Forest is owned by the state of California and the National Forest. So Nestle is taking our public water, and that's what people are standing up to fight.
And they really are taking it when you're doing the math at 36 million gallons for $524. That's stealing, in my opinion, and criminal. And we should actually be filing all kinds of lawsuits against them for the people for stealing our water. Because, I mean, how could you not know that? I mean, you're selling it for how much money? I'd like to know what the percentage of profit is on that, but I'm sure it's really big. And they have been... just a little background on Nestle, everyone. This is a model that they are using all over the world. And not just Nestle, but other big corporations. For some reason, they think that they have a right to take any water that they want. And this is what happens when we feed these corporations and create these giant, I call them monsters, really, because they start to abuse their power in a lot of ways. And we learned that clearly on the Prop 67 fight for GMO labeling, that these big corporations paid millions of dollars for advertising to defeat Prop 37 for the right for us to know what the heck's in our food. And then they duplicated that in Washington. Only this time they hid behind the Grocery Manufacturers Association with their money. These corporations donated all this money and said, oh, this is just the Grocery Manufacturers Association, when really it was all of these corporations. Well, they were convicted of a federal felony for what they did, and were had to pay, I think it was like $25 million or something, but the thing is, what we have to do is we have to accept the reality of what's really going on here. And I just want to thank you, Steve. You just did such an excellent job of explaining all of that. We have to start doing maybe a side-by-side, benefits and non-benefits of this situation, because what's at risk. The endangered species that you mentioned. The residents, the people that live there, do they not have any rights? Why are we giving some Swiss company our water for free and letting them put people out that live there without water? And not just that, but our streams and our ability to go and enjoy our lands, to go and have a little picnic, by the stream with your family. And just think about all the wildlife that depend and come and drink out of that river. It's not like they get to go turn on a faucet or go buy a bottle of Arrowhead water. They are dependent on that for life and even to be able to live. And we appreciate all these things. And when we see them, they bring us joy. And this company is taking all of that from us. And their arrogant attitude is something that's unforgivable to me. What they have done, they have stolen from our people, from anyone actually, because these just like Steve said, these parks belong to all of us. And what I like about this, Steve, is it's if there is something to like, and that is the lesson that we're learning here. Because I think it's an important lesson for all of us to learn, because we know that moves that are being made for the current administration to put our parks up for sale And have you heard about that as well, the legislation that's been happening?
Yes, I've been watching that real close, and in fact, Congressman Cook even said that he was supportive of giving the national forest to the state because the national forest obviously couldn't take care of this Nestle issue, and that the Forest Service should back off on Nestle and not give them any real pressure. And so Congressman Cook's right in there with everybody else who is against public land and especially national public land.
Well, explain that because maybe people don't understand what all that means. Kind of take us through that step by step. Now, you say he's against national land and they want to give it back to the states. Like, what does that really mean?
Okay. A lot of the congressmen in the West, where there's so much federal land, national forests, national parks, Bureau of Land Management land, national wildlife refuges, some of those state congressmen and senators and the representatives want to take that land away from the federal government and sell it or give it away to the states because they say the states is where the management should be, not at the federal government. You know, even Trump is very anti-federal government, basically. So all of those public lands are threatened right now. And so when this Nestle issue came up, Cook was asked by the Desert Sun, what do you think about this? And Cook said, well, they should back off, quit pressuring Nestle. This is an example of how the Forest Service can't manage their land, and so that needs to be given to state and local governments. And that was totally wrong to stand up for Nestle against our public land. It's our public land, you know, so.
Well, okay, this is where we have like the action, the action phase that we have to start to take action. And you know, I know it's hard to think about because we all have so many pressures in our life. We have so much to do. But I'll tell you, if we don't start speaking up as a group, our power as a group, as people, this is what is going to protect our lands. And just give them a little bit of an idea, Steve, because from all that I did a bunch of research too, as far as like these mining companies. Like there's an Australian mining company that wants to come in and dig some giant copper mine over in
Arizona.
Yeah. And, you know, like if we allow that, give us an idea of what would be the outcome.
The copper mine?
Yeah, if we allow like this Australian company to come in and take our copper out of our federal land, what happens to that land?
Well, have you ever seen copper mines? They're big giant pits, open pit mines. So it goes from natural habitat to open pit, basically. And they're almost impossible to restore because it's solid rock. And so you end up with a big giant pit there. And you end up with the roads that it took to access the mine, all the overburden that's generated by the mine. And the one in Arizona is is a real problem that I have a kind of a real concern for personally. I used to be the biologist there on the Coronado National Forest, and that's where this project is in the Coronado National Forest.
So you really know this area.
Santa Rita Mountains, and it's one of the last places in the United States where we still get jaguars periodically, and jaguars are unbelievably wonderful creatures, and so to me it's very important, and that's the kind of importance that those places have is for species like jaguar that kids may never get to see in the United States, but now they have a chance still. And that brings up the border wall. That's another big giant issue. The border wall crosses all across all those animals' habitat. The Sonoran pronghorn antelope, they need to move back and forth. They need a lot of country to live in. The jaguars, they need a lot of country to live in. And so that border wall has a lot of issues that I'm really concerned with as a biologist and citizen.
Yeah, and that's something that I learned a lot about in urban sprawl. Because I lived in Colorado, and I know that they were building communities way out away from town, and they wanted to have houses out there because of the beauty that was out there, but their presence totally disrupted the migration pathway of different animals. So that because the houses were there, they couldn't even migrate in a way that they had been doing for probably hundreds of years.
Thousands and thousands of years.
Thousands and thousands of years. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so we're not thinking big picture in so many different ways in this country. And I tell you, I hope that those of you that are listening are getting fired up. We've already talked. Is it Senator Cook or Congressman Cook?
Congressman Cook.
Congressman Cook has said that he's all for selling off our federal lands, your parks, allowing corporations to come in and dig giant holes, get rid of our wildlife, and then also the hazards of this wall that we're talking about. Oh yeah, build a wall, but what kind of impacts does that really have on all of the things that are wonderful about our country? Another issue that was brought up, Steve, I'd like to hear your opinion on, is if we built the wall along the Rio Grande, that if we build it on our side of the river, we're actually giving the river to Mexico. And if we tried to build it on the other side of the river,
we're taking their half of the river.
Yeah, and plus they're not going to pay for it. It's going to be we're going to have to buy their land. So are we willing to give up the Rio Grande River for a wall? I mean, come on, people. This is like crazy. So tell us more about what, because I want to understand. Oh, well, I wanted to first of all ask you, like when I did the research about these companies on how they're able to come on to federal land and frack, mine, because it's my understanding that we have like 1 million abandoned mines in this country. What happened with that one mine where all those that it was on Navajo land? Was that right?
I believe so, and a tributary to the Colorado River, I think.
And so, tell us what happened with that mine first.
From what I understand, they were doing some restoration work on some of the ponds that had been there for years and years, and they busted through the dike on one of the ponds, and all that bad stuff that had been settled there for all those years drained into the river.
Okay, well, when you say a pond, maybe some people are thinking about a beautiful pond with lily pads and fish swimming in it. Tell everyone what kind of pond this was.
These are ponds that come from the bad stuff that is leached out of the mines, and so it's a place where people can't even go in there. It's protected because it's so dangerous. So it was bad water that went into the river.
And won't this don't we already have, like in Montana, isn't there a giant hole there that it's so toxic, it's like acid, and they have, from what I understand, they have endangered cranes.
Oh, that are landing on the water.
Yeah, that come and land on that water, where this hole, where this mine used to be, and water collects in it, and it's super toxic. So these incredibly beautiful cranes that are endangered are migrating across this hole, and then they land in the water. Oh, that's something cranes do. And they're poisoned with acid water. And this is what we're going to end up with, a giant hole full of acid water. And not just that, but I don't even want to think about it, Steve, but let's paint a picture if we just put up our federal lands to the highest bidder. I mean, what is your worst nightmare about what could happen here?
Well, I've seen it happen, and the companies, if we don't watch them and we don't make sure they do the right thing, and the agency that does that the most for us as citizens is the EPA. That's their job, is keeping water safe and air safe. Well,
which is going to be gutted.
Yeah, and we're gutting that. Trump's budget guts those agencies, and so even today, the tendency is for those companies to come in and do all their stuff. Then when the resource is gone, then just leave it. And so, because of the EPA in places and the regulations that we have, we're a lot of times able to stop those companies, make them correct it before they leave, make them restore the area. But my biggest fear is with getting rid of all the regulations, cutting the EPA back, is we'll have all kinds of big companies just running in, taking the resource and leaving this abandoned land that's not worth a thing anymore. So
Well, you mentioned the EPA, and I just want to let everyone know that hopefully in a couple of weeks we're going to be having a guest that actually worked for the EPA, and she was trying to fight the pollution that Dow was putting in the Great Lakes in Michigan, where the pesticide that you may have heard that Obama tried to phase out because it is so destructive. It attacks our myelin sheaths. It attacks our ability for our nerves to be able to communicate, our muscles, our heart. All of our muscles are dependent on messages from nerves, and this pesticide blocks that. And when pregnant women are exposed to it and children are exposed to it, just devastating things happen. IQ, birth defects. There is, they spent years and years hiding the fact that these pesticides were so destructive, stalled legislation, investigations into the toxicity of these pesticides, and now they have gotten our government to turn over an effort to stop the use of them and protect our population, our farmers, and they're like, oh, well, I'm doing this to help the farmers. Really? Because to me, it seems like you're helping the corporations. And Dow has a long history. There were no regulations before 1970. That's when the EPA was formed. And they were just dumping these dioxins. The Dow is the maker of napalm, which was used in flamethrowers to burn people. Many may have remembered the picture of a small 9-year-old child running through the streets, her clothes burned off of her. That was napalm. They were using Ancient Orange to defoliate, to expose other soldiers from Vietnam. And I think most of us have seen the pictures, the horrific pictures of what has happened to the population, the birth defects. And the thing is, those birth defects, they will never stop. The people that have those birth defects, Steve, it is genetic, where if they reproduce, those birth defects will show up forever. Wow. Forever. And just think about that. We are being exposed to this. What happened is glyphosate stopped working. The plants are so smart, they got resistant to it. The weeds. Monsanto has failed at every turn saying that they were going to, what they were going to do, they have not done. And so they had to pull out of their toolbox some of the old pesticides that hadn't been resistant to weeds, that had been banned, and we knew not to use them because they're so toxic, and now they're using them on us. And Dow is like, they want to keep being able to manufacture and sell these, and they sell them to other countries, of which maybe we're importing things that have been, this pesticide has been used on. And pesticides are just like oil. They are really obsolete. We do not need them. It's killing all the microbes in the soil, which is contributing to climate change. And I want to get into another discussion here about forests. Forests are, I just read this article this week. I found it just kind of like this light went off in my head, because Miracle Grow, which is Scott's, has a record of just doing so many horrible things. They were poisoning birdseed for years, spraying it with pesticides so the rats wouldn't eat it in the warehouse, and then selling it to bird lovers who fed it to birds and were unknowingly killing them. They got a slap on the hand and a $2 million fine. And so, Miracle Grow, I've read all kinds of threads on the internet about their potting soil, killing plants that were like over 20 years old, having all kinds of bugs in them. And then the latest story about their GMO grass, which was a joint effort with Monsanto, because of course we want to create a grass that you can spray Monsanto on. And hey, have you caught those latest Monsanto commercials? that now you can spray Roundup on your grass and it won't kill it. And I have got to get someone on about that because I don't understand how that's happening. So they want you to spray your entire front yard and backyard with something that's on our Prop 65 list as cancer causing. It will now have to have a cancer warning on any product sold with glyphosate in it. And they're running these commercials like nonstop. I'm getting them in social media, I'm getting them on television. And have you noticed, one thing I have to say, because I've been so mad at the home improvement stores, like Lowe's and Home Depot, running Monsanto Roundup commercials. And not just that, but when you walked in the store, there was like a pallet sitting there. And just pushing it on people to expose their families to a cancer-causing toxin. All right? So, you know, they're pushing that, and I'm asking everyone, please, please, please do not buy that product. You're exposing your families to glyphosate. And also,
That's Roundup, right?
Yes, that's in Roundup. But the thing is, Steve, it's not just
Roundup.
glyphosate in that product. They have all kinds of, I mean, even hundreds of other ingredients, like the BO. Let's see, I always got to think. BOEA. And that's a surfactant that makes it all the chemicals penetrate deep into the plant. And not only are they using it for weeds, but they're spraying it on fields for wheat, all the legumes, grains, all the different grains. They're spraying it. They call it to ripen, to make it everything ripen at the same time. That's actually to kill the plant and dry it out. It's called dissection.
Wow.
And so, you know, it's never watered after that. So they're harvesting a plant that had glyphosate just sprayed on it and making bread out of it. And we're eating rice and beans and all of these products. And people are wondering, why am I gluten intolerant? Well, that's one of the reasons. And glyphosate is also classified as a antibiotic. So people are eating it. It's destroying your gut in so many different ways, including your good gut bacteria. And that is why people are getting so sick from this food. And the only way around it is you have to buy organic. You may think, oh, this is like more expensive. You buy in bulk, like beans and rice. I buy in bulk, organic at Clark's Nutrition, but I go to the farmer's market. I've been getting all of my meat there. And you may have heard that we're having an avian flu epidemic in our factory farms. They've already killed something like 300,000 animals this year. Tyson, you know, and when you look at how they raise these animals, they're confined. The pigs cannot even move. They are confined inside of a warehouse. They don't go outside. They don't peck at the dirt. They don't get fresh air. And so they've been breeding. And they give them antibiotics every day. They're breeding antibiotic-resistant bacteria and viruses within these warehouses. And unless you burn those suckers down, I don't see where it's ever going to stop. Because we killed 50 million animals. 50 million animals 3 years ago.
Wow.
And that avian flu, guess what? Food industry, you know, are they shipping them to another country? Are they destroying them like they should be? But I met someone that worked at a pig factory. I can't remember, it's Iowa or Ohio. I get them mixed up sometimes. But she said they had to kill 1 million piglets.
Wow.
1 million. And that when you cut them open, their insides were like liquid. This is like freaking me out. Guess where I get my meat? I get my meat from a local farmer that grows organically. He does everything himself. This is like, I have to share like one happy thing out of this whole thing. I'm so excited. I have to tell you, I am now the proud owner of a share of a Jersey cow named Cinnamon.
Cool.
Yeah, and this is again at my local farmers market, the Grove Market on you go down Orange and you'll find it. It's on Saturday mornings, but it was so awesome, Steve. I had Jim. Keep thinking it's Jim, but I know it's not Jim. Joe. That's right, Joe. one of the couple that owned the cow, they put a lot of work into this. They planted pasture land last year to grow grass, and they're growing it on one of my the farmers that the Three Sisters farm, which is an incredible organic farm. Been to the farm, know the couple that own it and their children, and they're like family to me. And so then the cow had her baby, and so now she can give milk. And so I bought a share last Saturday, and then they delivered 2 glass bottles, just like the old-fashioned, the old-fashioned where they like we used to. I remember because I'm kind of up there in age. When the milkman actually used to leave glass bottles of milk outside our door.
Yep.
And so I was able to get raw milk, which is like so concentrated with nutrition. It's like breast milk. And I have an interview with Mark McAfee on my YouTube. If you type in Organic Pastures Smart Health Talk, you will be able to find that interview. And it's so fascinating, raw milk. I actually did this experiment, Steve, where I had a half gallon of Organic Pastures milk. I left it in my refrigerator for 7 months. 7 months. It never molded.
Wow.
When you open it up, it just smells like sour milk, and that's the kind of milk that my aunt and my grandma made pancakes out of.
Oh,
they would
okay.
purposely sour the milk even
Wow.
for sour milk pancakes. And I mean, it's just like, it just smells like sour milk. It's still not bad. It's when we break open the fat globules and the contents spill out into the milk. It's when we, homogenize it, heat it, where we destroy all the enzymes that are in there that keeps it fresh, just like eggs. Fresh eggs can stay fresh. And I tell you, I get my eggs at the farmer's market. I get my bacon. I get my chicken. I got like the most incredible chicken. And I make about 20 meals, probably more than 20 meals, because I boil the bones and make 2 giant Ziplocs of bone broth, which is extremely healing for your joints. And I made this incredible ramen soup with some fresh veggies from the farmer's market and that bone broth, and I just thought I was in heaven. I mean, just every single sip, you're just like, this is good. I'm doing a good thing for my body. My body's happy right now. It's like, yeah, buddy. Let's get some repairs done. Let's build some new cells. Let's clean this place up. It's like they were having a party in there when I was eating the soup, let me tell you. And just all of the incredible things. Like I got, this other really exciting thing that I got. If you go on my Instagram, I posted this. I got Pinkerton avocados, and I know people love avocados. Well, this is the cream of the crop when it comes to avocados. Pinkerton, it is the richest avocado. You think the Haas is? No, it's the Pinkerton, all right? And when the avocados from the Cunningham Organic Farm are just phenomenal. You never get those weird little brown, black, moldy. I tell you, like those hydroponic tomatoes you're probably buying that are allowed to put organic on there right now, they just turn to mold because they're missing nutrients that come from the soil, not from hydroponics. And I got these, they're called sweet lemons, and you can eat them like an orange.
Wow.
And you can make lemonade with no sugar. And as a dietitian, I'm just like jumping for joy.
Yeah.
And when I tasted that lemon, I just couldn't even believe. It was like an experience. It was like, wow. And then it makes you realize the diversity that has been stolen from us. In the Midwest, we used to have hundreds of crops being grown. Hundreds, everybody. Now we have like 5. I mean, this is, and what we're growing for is just to feed animals, not even to feed us. And I tell you, companies like Nestle's and getting, this conventional food and processed food, forget it. Forget it. I'm telling you, it doesn't give you anything. It gives you some cheap thrill because of the artificial flavors in there that are designed to target the addiction part of your brain. And that's what's happening. You're getting like hooked on it. And don't be buying fast food. That chicken has been to China and back to be processed, and it started off in a factory farm. And we had Steve talking about ponds full of toxic waste from the mines. Well, we have ponds full of excrement, 1 million gallon ponds from factory farms. And then they put a pump in that and they just spray it right onto the field. And there's antibiotic resistant bacteria in there. And I tell you, like, they try to scare people about raw milk all the time. I was so excited to get milk that it just came from Cinnamon that day delivered to my house. And it went from fridge to fridge. He bought a cooler. I was ice cold when I got it. It was like, and it tasted like milk is supposed to taste like. And I am so excited. I can't wait to see the transformation in my health and my family's health from drinking this raw milk. And I'll tell you, not one person has died from raw milk cheese. What they are dying from is cucumbers, peanut butter, hamburger. You know, we have had massive deaths because of this, and it's because of our growing methods and, you know, doing things like spraying excrement from the factory farm right onto the field, and then you have a cantaloupe sit on top of the ground there where that excrement has just been sprayed. And I'm not supporting inhumane treatment to animals. I tell you, Doug and the Friendship Ranch, where they grow the meat that I get from and the eggs, those animals get sunshine. They walk around outside. That means I get vitamin D in that food. And it's just like, it's such an exciting thing to eat food like that. Yeah, I have to do a little bit more work because I cook some things, but I try to like cook a bunch and then I make things easier later on to do it. But I don't have to go shopping. I don't have to run down to the fast food restaurant. None of that stuff. And it's just a really good thing for our family. But the next, we have 10 minutes left, and I wanted to get, since I have this expert biologist here with all this years of experience, and I tell you, I want to have you here every week, Steve. I have already fallen in love with Steve. He is like so adorable. He's like a little teddy bear, actually, but, like the kind that gives you really good hugs. But the fact that you're speaking up and explaining all these things, I read an article that I found extremely disturbing. I was talking about Miracle Grow, and I want to follow through on that because this is related to Miracle Grow. They created a GMO grass, which has now been, it has gotten away from the researchers. And this is one of the problems with these GMOs and these, that we're inventing. It's crossbreeding with the real thing. And I wanted to get into more of like what's really happening in the DNA part of it. But for right now, what I want to discuss is how they're spraying forests, for one thing. Miracle Grow, they sell this potting soil. And on there, it says like forest products is what's in the potting soil, okay, when you look at the ingredients. And I kept thinking, you know, God, they've been guilty of like so many things. I know they're in cahoots with Monsanto. What the heck? Where are they getting this forest material is what I'm wondering. So I read this article, Steve, and it says like there are this guy, Tim Palmer, I think is his name. He's written several books too and he's an eco-photographer, just an incredible person. He wrote this very telling article on how 5.8 million acres of forest, not just any kind of forest, Steve, we're talking industrial forest. And I'm kind of like, industrial forest? And then I thought back to articles that I read about people meeting about GMO trees. Trees that if anything landed on it, it would secrete a poison and kill them. All right? These are trees that secrete poison. Well, not just that, they are spraying any kind of pesticide they want because these industrial forests are not regulated. And they're using atrazine, which we had Tyrone Hayes on. It's actually changing the sexual orientation of our babies and mutating their genital organs and causing breast cancer in girls.
Frogs and salamanders too.
Kill them. The amphibians. And so they're doing all this. They're spraying these pesticides, and it's on these industrial forests unregulated, and it's like going into the waterways, it's draining into people's homes. I mean, has this been something that you have ever heard of?
Well, in the United States, it would be monitored and controlled somewhat by EPA. You know, they would try to take care of us. I don't know where they get their forest products from, where their industrial...
Yeah, where Miracle Grow is getting it
forest
from.
is.
But I'm thinking maybe these people, because if it's industrial, they're growing it for the trees. And what gets me, I don't know if you've heard of this either, Steve, that like hemp, industrial hemp, 3 months. 3 months you have a crop.
Yeah, hemp would be wonderful to be using.
Yeah, we can use it for almost pretty much everything we use a tree for. We could be using industrial hemp, and thank goodness they did approve trials for industrial hemp in the United States, because we were having to buy industrial hemp. There's a lot of companies that are American companies that use hemp in their products, not the kind that gets you high, just they use it for fiber. They can make concrete out of it, they can make paper out of it, they can make clothes out of it.
Oil.
I mean, it's just unbelievable all the things we can do with hemp. And it's 3 months, man, 3 months, turnover. You know, we're not spraying massive pesticides. Why do we have 5 million acres of industrial trees when we could be using hemp instead? And I think we need to investigate this even more. I'm going to try to get to the bottom of it, but I am thinking there is a link between those two things. And I just want to let everyone know that I have milkweed seeds here. I wish that last year in February, Steve, I had all kinds of monarchs that came and visited my milkweed in my backyard. I had 16 caterpillars. And then the state ordered a spraying for the Asian citrus psyllid in my neighborhood. People, you can opt out. Just if you remember anything today, remember that you do not have to let the state spray your home with a toxic pesticide, ruin your organic garden, spray your citrus trees with poison, and they try to make you think, oh, this merit pesticide is perfectly safe. Well, Steve was just warning us about amphibian, the harm to amphibians. Well, this merit, it has the same that they're using for the psyllid. It has the same warning on it, Steve. And get this, they say, oh, if they spray and then someone's sprinkler comes on, call the state immediately, because it's going to run out to our streams and destroy our amphibians. You know what's happening? No one even hardly knows when they come and spray. And then the people that opt out, one of my friends, they came in her yard and she said, I don't want you to spray. And they're like, why? And they start intimidating her and asking her questions and made her sign some paper.
Right.
You know? I mean, really, we have to stand up to this. They have no right to come onto our property to apply a toxic substance. And we can opt out, everyone. You can call. I'm working on a graphic right now that I'm going to be circulating everywhere that has the phone number, because guess what? When I go to look for the friggin' phone number, I go to their website, the state regulatory. You can't find a phone number. They don't want you calling them. They hide it. I had to dig and dig to find that phone number. And luckily, I took a picture of that paper that they sent me last year when they were going to come and spray. But nowhere on that paper, Steve, does it say you can opt out. They don't want people to know that. And so if you go to bluemonarchproject.com, we are starting an effort to educate people. Let me know if you have an organization, your church or whatever, you want me to come and present to them about what's going on. Because education is key. You know, that's why we have Steve here today. He's our expert biologist and worked for the Forest Service for decades, and he's telling us the lowdown here. And I tell you, I'm taking that part when you explained all that. I'm going to be like posting it everywhere, Steve, because people need to know this stuff. And we need to take action, and there are so many things that we can do to prevent. Prevention. I am not hearing that enough. I'm not hearing it in the talk on how we're budgeting our money. That if we prevent something, we save so much heartache and money. And we need to do more prevention. Blue Monarch Project, go and sign up for our Milkweed Planting Club. I will send you free milkweed seeds, and we'll get you started. And that's what we have to do. We have to start planting the milk, and we have to stand up to spraying and talk to your landscapers. Please ask them, do not use Roundup in my yard, because these people are working while you're gone. And they're out there doing your yard, and they're spraying Roundup in your yard, and you don't even know it. So talk to your landscaper and say, please do not use pesticides in my yard. I don't want my family exposed to that. But you're doing a good thing for them too, because they're being exposed all the time, and they're going to get cancer. So go ahead and give us some last words. We have just about a minute and a half, but go ahead, Stephen, tell people where they should go for more help or information if they want to get involved, because you guys went out and protested along the street. You're trying to raise awareness. How can we get people organized and get them involved?
Well, the best thing right now is to keep watching the newspapers and stuff to see what the next event that happens is. Once the state board makes a decision on the water, the Forest Service will start their Environmental Policy Act process, and that's when people need to get involved. So you can get on the San Bernardino Neck.
Take a walk on the wild side.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.